Hello, welcome to Chapter 4, Business 100. I'm your host, Dr. Yowie. I'm actually just the instructor. All right, I'll stop trying to be funny because I'm not good at it. Okay, today we're going to talk about something that's very important, especially if you want to own your own business, and that is options for organizing businesses. Okay, I can tell you from personal experience, I worked as a banker for a number of years. This can be very confusing for a business owner. Everyone thinks, oh, I got to be a corporation, so I have limited liability. Well, we're going to talk about all those things, and we've talked about them a little bit in Chapter 1, so we'll talk more about it. So we're going to define and examine the advantages and disadvantages of the sole proprietorship form of organization. We're going to identify two types of partnerships and evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of the partnership form of organization. I'm not a huge fan of everything he says, but if you ever watch Dave Ramsey, he'll tell you, don't form a partnership, especially with a relative, and he's 100% right. Okay, partnerships can be ugly. It's like a marriage. All right, we're going to describe the corporate form of organization and cite the advantages and disadvantages of corporations. Okay, this is one of the biggest errors I've always seen is people just rush, oh, I got a new business, I want to be a corporation. Slow down, Hoss. All right, then we're going to define and debate the advantages and disadvantages of mergers, acquisitions, and leveraged buyouts. I'm not sure we're going to cover that in this video, but that is one of the learning objectives of this chapter. Okay, this is important stuff here. These are various forms of business ownership. You've got sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. Okay, sole proprietorship means there is one owner. Now, legally, you and your business are the same person legally. Okay, so there's one owner. The income from that business gets taxed once, and that is on your individual income taxes because you and the business, you two, sorry, are the same person legally. Okay, there's no difference between you and your business. So any income the business earns is your income, and it gets taxed on your personal income. The liability, the thing up here says unlimited. What that means is any debts, damages caused or incurred by the business are yours if you are the sole proprietor. That means if you borrow money, you have to pay it back, even if the business doesn't succeed. If you have a business and say you have a delivery truck and the delivery driver crashes into a family and kills them all and you get sued for 10 billion gazillion dollars, you have to pay it, okay, within certain limits, okay? Now, these are owned by a single individual, and it is the easiest way to conduct business. If you wanted to start a sole proprietorship today, you literally could just do it. Okay, go print some business cards. If you need one, find a place of business to operate out of. Depending upon what type of business you're in, you may need to go down to the city or the county, depending upon where you're operating, and get a business license. If you're going to do business in something other than your own name, say I'm going to do, business as, Yowie or Lightning Quick Consulting. I know I just made that up. Okay, that's not my name, although I could change my name. But I would have to go down and get what's called a DBA, doing business as. So I'd say I'm doing it in Gadsden. I go down to City Hall. I'd get myself a business license, and I would get a doing business as DBA, James Yowie, doing business as Lightning Quick Consulting. Okay. Now, many people get scared off by this right here, that unlimited liability. It's not that bad of a deal, especially for a small business if you're the only owner. If you are the only owner and it is a small business and you don't think you're going to do any catastrophic damage like pollute a whole town or kill a family in a car, it's probably your best form. And here's why. Even if you're a corporation, you're probably going to purchase insurance on the business anyway. As a sole proprietor, you can go down to any insurance agent who does business insurance, and they almost all do. Go down there and you get what's called an umbrella policy. These things are very cheap, they're inexpensive, they cover you and your business. So if you get, and it's relatively expensive. A couple of years ago, I had a client, a student that worked for an insurance company. He went and found out for $1 million in umbrella policy insurance, and it of course depends on some other factors, but generally you're talking like $25 a month, $40 a month. Okay, get a few million, and anything you could run into is pretty much covered. Also, if you're a startup, relatively new business that hasn't been around and isn't doing millions and millions of dollars in revenue, if you go borrow money from a bank, I'm not going to lend your corporation money. Okay, I was a banker. I was a business banker. A corporation, we'll talk about later, is just like you're literally creating a person, legal person. That's the corporation, and it's separate from you. Now, just because you create this corporation doesn't say, oh, bank's going to run in there and lend the corporation money. I'm not. I don't even want to lend them money. I'll lend you money. Because even if the business fails, you had a job or an occupation, you can go out and make money and pay me back even though the business died. Okay? So even if you're a corporation, I'm probably, unless it's a large corporation, and we're talking millions and millions of dollars in revenue and shareholders, I'm not going to lend a corporation money. I'll put the corporation's name on the paperwork, but you're going to sign personally as a guarantor because you can go out and make money and pay me back if the business goes kaput. I'm not going to lend you money and then hope your business makes it. So you're going to borrow money on your own ability to pay it back anyway. So that's really not an issue, especially for a startup business. I'm not lending the corporation money and letting you off the hook if your stupid corporation fails, which a lot of them do. I'm going to get it from you. I'll put the corporation's name on there, but I'm getting it from you. Okay, so most startup businesses should be started at that sole proprietor level unless you're not the only owner. That can create a problem. One way of solving that problem is through a partnership, which I am not a big fan of. A partnership is where you have two or more owners. So you can't be a sole proprietorship because you got this other guy, this other gal, other people involved. They're very much like a sole proprietorship in that the income is taxed only once on each individual's income tax. So let's say we're all equal third partners. The business makes $300,000 in profits. Each one of us is going to have $100,000 in additional income on our tax returns, and we're going to pay taxes on that. Okay. Liability, somewhat limited. We'll get into that in a little bit. The use is it's an easy way for two individuals to conduct business. Now, one of the real big drawbacks to this is that all the owners are 100% liable for any debts or damages caused by or incurred by the business. So what does that mean? Let's say you're a silent partner. You put the money up. Maybe you had somebody who knew something about this business. They said, hey, I'll run it. I know, I got customers. I'll get us customers. I'll do everything. You just put the money up, right? We'll go get some trucks. We'll get some equipment. I'll run it all. Just make me, I'll be a partner. You'll be a partner 50-50. Maybe not even 50-50. Maybe it's 60-40. He's 60%, you're 40. Doesn't matter. Let's say you're 90-10. It doesn't matter. Now, let's say he goes out and you get a company credit card, which you and he both have to sign for, and he runs up millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in credit on the card, legitimately or illegitimately. And let's say that he truck crashes and it kills a family of 4. They get $1 million judgment against the company. Maybe you only put $10,000 in it. Doesn't matter. you're going to pay. If you're the deep pockets, they're going to sue you. They may not even sue your partner if he's got nothing. Maybe that was all he had. You got other interest and income. They're going to sue you, and you're going to pay $1 million. And when the judge says you have to pay $1 million to these people, you're going to say, but I only own 10% of the business, or I was only half, or I was a silent partner. I didn't even know what he was doing. I just put the money up. It doesn't matter. They're going to get it from you. Then you might say, but what about him? The judge will say, well, maybe you can go after him. But he doesn't have anything. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm making you pay, because he can't. So that's the problem. If you're in a partnership, it's like a marriage. It's like being married to somebody, right? Your wife goes out or your husband goes out and runs up a credit card or crashes a car into a family of 4 and kills them all. You're going to pay if he or she can't. You have the job, and you're going to say, oh, but I don't even like my wife anymore. I was getting ready to leave her anyway. You can say, I don't care. You're paying. It's the same thing with a partnership. A lot of people will form partnerships with family members, and that can cause a lot of problems. If you ever want to hear about some of them, go on to Dave Ramsey, listen, just see if you can pull up some of his old calls on partnerships. He'll tell you it's a disaster. It's just like being married without the benefits. Okay? If that partner does something, you're responsible for it. I'm deathly against these things. There's a contract you have to develop, a partnership agreement that you have to write up, and oftentimes it costs your lawyer, so it costs a little bit more than a sole prop too. Now, if you have more than one owner, you can't be a sole prop. If you don't want to be a partnership, what can you be? That's the third thing here, corporation. Different types of corporations it can have any number of shareholders. In S Corp, it's limited to 30, I believe. And then when you get into C Corps, it's unlimited. Okay? Corporations, depending upon what type, can either be pass-through entities where the income is only taxed once on the owner's personal income tax. That's generally the form of an S Corp and a couple others. Or if you're a C Corp, then the profits of the business will get taxed twice. Once on corporate income tax. Because remember, a corporation is literally where the state says this corporation is its own person. It's responsible for its own actions, liabilities, debts, and damages. It's separate from all the people who own it, the stockholders. It's its own person. Now, anything the owners, shareholders, put into the corporation, right? They put in that corporate ball, that can be sued for if the corporation incurs debts and doesn't pay them, or if it incurs damages. They can get everything you put in that corporation, but everybody else out here is theoretically safe and not liable. There are exceptions to that as well. Okay? Because they're different people. I'm not ABC Corp. I'm Joe Smith. Don't know you. Didn't harm you. The corporation did, even though I own part of it. Now, what that's called in legal terms is the corporate veil. Okay? It's like this drape is drawn behind the corporation. And all the people back behind it, the owners, they're separate from the corporation. So a lawyer can't go get your stuff, or a debt collector. But there's an exception to that rule. And I have friends who are attorneys that deal with this all the time. And that is if it can be shown that the corporate will, right, the ball, is your will, then they can pierce that corporate veil and go after your stuff if there isn't enough stuff in the corporation to pay off the debts and liabilities. If you're starting your own business, you do not want to be a C Corp. One, you're probably going to have to buy business insurance anyway on the business to protect the business and yourself. You can use that to avoid liability with the sole prop. Number two, if it's just you, you're going to form a corporation. You get your mom to be the secretary, you get your dad to be the vice president, and you're going to get your daughter, your wife, or son, or somebody to be the treasurer, right? And then you're going to be the president, the CEO, and you'll put that on your business card, and nobody will care. But it's all yours. You're running the thing. They ain't putting money in it. They don't even know what you do. You just put their name on the paperwork. You're not going to hold board meetings. Okay, you don't want to. They have nothing to do with it. You're just putting their name on there because they're your parents and your family. You know they won't rip you off. Okay, they won't come back and say, "Oh, I'm the CEO of this company. I'm the treasurer, and you didn't meet, and I never had anything to do with it, and you're going to sue you or anything." So you don't want to mess with that stuff if it's just you. Plus, if it's just you, a good lawyer can show your will, the corporate will, same thing. Pierce that veil, go get your stuff. Plus, if you make profits, they're going to get taxed twice. Once at the corporate rate, which Donald Trump just lowered, believe it or not, and after the corporation's paid taxes, and you get dividend income from the company. That's where the company pays you. It's the only time shareholders ever get any money from the corporation once they've bought a stock. Then that dividend income is going to get taxed again on your personal taxes. So it gets taxed twice. Now, when we talk about corporations or various forms, the first one we have here is an S Corp. And I was mistaken. It used to be 30. An S Corp can have up to 100 shareholders. Most startup businesses are not going to have over 100 shareholders. They're not going to be listed on an exchange. So if you have to go corp, you want to go S Corp. S Corp, taxed as a partnership. So if you have 3 owners, the business makes $300,000 in profits. Each person pays personal income tax on $100,000 in income, adding up to $300,000. You've got the limited liability of a corporation. It's a legal entity used for legal entities with tax advantages for restricted number of shareholders. Like I said, it's for under 100. Most startups, you never need to go above 100. You never need a C Corp, go S if you got to go Corp. If it's just you, go sole proprietor, get an umbrella policy. Covers your house and your cars too. So let's say you get in an accident at home, your umbrella policy pays out. It can serve as your homeowner's insurance, your auto insurance, personal insurance. It can cover the business, the autos, the vehicles in the business, all of it. Okay, because you and the company are the same thing. If you're sole prop, so you're insuring yourself. If you go corp, then you have to get corporate insurance and your own homeowners and all this other stuff. Okay, now another way of organizing a business with more than one owner is through a limited liability company. A limited liability company has an unlimited number of shareholders. Both it and the S Corp are what we call pass-through entities. The income from the business passes through to the owners. That's where it gets taxed. So once again, if you have a limited liability company, you have 3 owners, it makes $300,000, you're all even partners, $100,000 in income goes to each partner, and they pay their personal taxes on it, and that's it. There's no corporate tax. Okay? A lot of people will use this limited liability company as a way to avoid personal lawsuits. Okay? To avoid personal lawsuits. I don't want to get sued, so I'll form an LLC. Now, once again, sole proprietorship, some facts on them. Owned and operated by one individual. That's it, one. When you get into 2, then you get into 2 or more, you get into problems. You either got to be a partnership or some form of corp, S Corp, LLC, or we'll get to C Corp later. Many focus on services rather than manufacturing. Oftentimes, if it's something really dangerous where you could, people could die, get stuck in machinery, it's fairly certain that that could happen. Then people will get scared off and go into the corporation type of stuff, S corp, C corp, etc. Look for that limited liability. They typically employ fewer than 50 people. They comprise 3/4 of all U.S. companies. 3/4 of all the companies in the United States are sole props. Okay. I don't know where they get this. Women business owners less likely to get access to credit. Never heard of it. I worked as a banker. I didn't care if you wore a dress, if you wore pants. I didn't care if you were supposed to wear a dress or pants and you were wearing them. If I could lend you money, I was going to lend you money. I don't know where they get this. Okay. Now, here we have a comparison of sole proprietorships. You can see almost 3/4 of all businesses are sole props. Then we have partnerships and S corps, pass-through entities, and then we have C corps, which are only 5.3%. Many people get stuck into thinking they need a C corp, and they go and they do the paperwork on their own, and it's a disaster. Avoid C corp and partnerships at all cost. Okay, if it's just you, sole prop. Unless you're really in a dangerous industry where you've got a lot of machinery and equipment, or a lot of things where you can hurt somebody, or you're going to have to borrow a lot of money. Even there, I'm not lending money to a C corp, brand new C corp. It's like a baby. I'm lending it. I'm putting your name on it anyway. Okay, and avoid partnerships. Okay, don't do one with a relative, as Dave Ramsey likes to say. Okay, the advantages are here: ease and cost of formation. You might not even need to do any paperwork, depending on the business. It allows a high level of secrecy. You have your books and you pay your taxes, and that's it. And if you got an accountant or a bookkeeper, that's it. Those are the only people that know what you do. The owner keeps all the profits, which is nice. Flexibility and control of the business. You don't have to ask anybody or get anybody to agree with you. Government regulation is minimal. Taxed at individual tax rates. That's once, not twice like a C corp, and can be easily dissolved. Okay. Disadvantages: unlimited liability. We talked about that. Scarce external funding. The only credit you're going to get is your credit, based on your credit. So if you have no credit, nobody's going to lend you money. If you have no income and you have no savings, no one's going to lend you money. I'm going to tell you that right now. Everybody says, "Oh, go get an SBA loan." SBA loan is a joke. Okay, I worked in business. I gave out loans to businesses. The last thing I would do for a client would do SBA. SBAs take a long time. You're dealing with the government. They're guaranteeing part of the loan. There's a ton of paperwork, and they don't lend money. They don't just say, "Oh, you're an American citizen, I'll lend you money." There's all kinds of requirements, and the loans aren't as good as a regular bank loan. You'd rather have a regular bank loan. Okay. Owners need diverse skills. You have to run the business. You might work in the business. You might be going out and doing the sales while someone else is manufacturing things. You got to manage the whole thing. Lack of qualified employees. I don't know how much true that is. If you can pay someone, they'll come work for you. And then finally, higher taxation rates. If you make a lot of money, okay, you might pay higher tax rates, but that's better than paying double taxes. Okay, sole proprietorships often have problems attracting talented employees because of competition from larger companies. Even there, you can't control for the size of your company. So you're going to get the same types of employees that other companies your size get. Just because your corporation doesn't make you bigger. I always hated this part of it. Okay. Partnerships. Two or more persons as co-owners. It minimizes the disadvantages of sole proprietorship and maximizes its advantages, we're told here. Typically larger than small proprietorships, but smaller than corporations. That's just simply because you have the capital that two or more people can provide rather than one. So they're not automatically bigger. Okay, keys to partnership, to success in a partnership. Okay, it says keep profit sharing equitable based on contributions. That's always easy to do. Partners should have different skill sets or resource contributions. Ethics and compliance is required. Let's say you got one good guy and one bad guy. The good guy is going to pay for what the bad guy does, especially if he's the one with deeper pockets. You must maintain effective communication skills. That's a huge problem. Let's say you and your best friend, you're like, man, we're going into business together, bro. We're never gonna separate. I'm always gonna have your back. I love you, man, right? After a couple beers, and you go out and you start up a business together. Maybe he incurs some financial problems, maybe gets divorced. Gosh, maybe, I don't know, maybe he thinks you hit on his wife, whatever. All of a sudden he's got problems, you got problems. Um, you might be buddies one day and the next day you're not buddies anymore. You still have to communicate with that person because you still need that person to make decisions for the business. And you're still relying on each other to do number one, keep that profit sharing equitable. You have to trust each other. What if I want to go out and use the business credit card to take out my wife and have, go see a show? Well, maybe I say, oh, it was a business lunch, right? It was a business lunch. Okay. You have to trust each other. There's a lot of trust involved here. It's just like being married without the benefits. Maintain transparency with stakeholders, right? Let's say we're partners. I'm running the business. The other guy's just like kind of, I trust you, right? Things start getting better and the company starts making a lot of money. He wants to know, am I giving him his fair share? He's like, hey, I put the money up. I'm a partner. I get upset. I'm like, hey, I'm doing all the work. You just sit at home and I write checks, you know? Maybe I don't want to send you all of it that you rightfully do. Then you got transparency issues. There's so many ways that a partner can do the other partner wrong. Okay, and you can't fire him. Okay, you can't fire him. If he controls 51% of the company, you can't even do anything about it, right? Except say, I want to sell my shares. And then you have to have his permission. If one of you dies, the business is dead. And you've got to either find someone to buy his share, buy him out, or liquidate the business and split it up. And that can cause problems with heirs. You must be realistic in resource and financial management. Previous experience related to the business is helpful. One of the things you would ever need if you have want to get a small business administration loan is one of the things they ask is, do you have experience? If you're going to open up a company, say a restaurant, they're like, have you ever run a restaurant? Have you kept the books? Were you a manager? What did you do? Oh, I waited tables and I was front house manager. That ain't going to cut it. You don't know how to run a kitchen, do you? No, I never cooked. You don't know how to do the books, do you? No. So that's the experience thing. Maintain life balance. Okay, that's nice. I don't know anybody that does that. If you're a small business owner, you're working a lot. Focus on customer satisfaction and product quality. Maintain resources in line with sales and growth expectation and planning. Okay. I'm going to skip this, but general partnership. Each partner has unlimited liabilities for debts. Limited partnership, risky investment projects where chances of loss are great. Do not share management, but share profits. So you could be a limited or a general partner. Articles of partnership. You have to list the assets each partner contributed, states management duties, specific division of profits and losses, specifies restrictions. You're usually going to get an accountant or a lawyer to draw this up, and that makes it more expensive. Advantages, easy to organize, not nearly as easy as a sole prop. More availability of credit and capital based on there being just simply more owners. Combined knowledge and skills from more than one owner, swift decision making, and government regulations are few. Okay. We're going to skip that. Disadvantages, unlimited liability, responsible for the other's decisions. We talked about that. A new arrangement is needed if partnership changes. Difficult to sell a partnership interest. Distribution of profits may be uneven. Cannot find external funding as easily as large corporations. Well, small corporations have troubles finding funding also. Taxation, quasi-taxable organization. They do not pay taxes, but do file a tax return, providing information on profitability and distribution of profits. That's different from a sole prop. The business doesn't file tax return. You do only. Here, the business files one. It doesn't pay taxes, but it says, okay, I gave this much income to partner A, B, and C, and then they have to pay taxes on that personally. Partners report their share of the profits and pay taxes at an income rate for individuals. Corporation, assets and liabilities are separate from owners. We talked about that. It's called the corporate veil, but it can be pierced, especially if you're the sole owner. Has many of the rights, duties, and powers of a person. It can own and transfer property, enter into contracts, sue and be sued in court. Accounts for the majority of all U.S. sales and income. Stocks. Corporations are typically owned by many individuals and organizations who own shares. Stock may be bought, sold, gifted, or inherited. These are shares of the company. Okay, so you buy into a corporation, you put money or assets in, and you're issued these shares of stock based on the percentage of the shares of what we call common stock. That determines how many votes you get. Okay, when you elect board of directors, hire and fire managers, upper executives, that's all done at that corporate level. Dividends, profits distributed to shareholders. Not all after-tax profits are paid to shareholders. So here, you could own a corporation. It could make profits, okay? But you don't get a thing on those profits until the corporation itself decides to pay dividends. Then you have to pay taxes on those dividends, which are paid out of profits the corporation already made. Those profits the corporation makes get taxed every year as they make them, okay? And not all of, this is an advantage, I guess, not all of the profits have to be paid to the owners. The corporation can hold profits that they earned but haven't paid out as dividends, and we call those retained earnings. In essence, that is a way of funding the corporation through its profits by not paying those profits out as dividends to the shareholders. They might be willing to do this if they believe you'll make even more money on those investments in the future. Creating corporation. Incorporators create the corporation, follow the state procedure for chartering the corporation. Incorporators file legal articles of incorporation with the state. The state issues a legal corporate charter to the company. Owners establish bylaws and elect board of directors. All of this is typically going to be done by a lawyer if you have any kind of a significant business with multiple owners. Okay, you can purchase forms on like legalforms.com or one of those places and fill them out yourself. But they are a bit complicated, and if you have a bigger business, it gets more complicated, and you're going to have an attorney or an accountant do it. This can be very expensive. Okay, just to buy the forms can cost you hundreds of dollars. Types of corporation. You have domestic, foreign, and alien corporations. I'll just let you read those off the slides. There's not much more I'm going to talk about that. Okay. Here's some American companies with more than half their revenues from outside the United States. Caterpillar, Dow, etc. We're not concerned about this. McDonald's. Okay. Types of corporation. There are private corporations owned by just one or a few people. No stock is sold to the public, not required to disclose financial information publicly. Okay. Initial public offering is where you take a private corporation and make it a public corporation. Here, you're going to go out and sell shares of stock and let them be traded on an exchange possibly. Okay? This is done when a private corporation wishes to go public, and they'll do this to raise additional capital, sell additional shares of stock. The company's grown to the point where we're having problems financing it. We need to go out and bring in a lot more owners, add a lot more capital to the company, and grow it. Public corporations, anyone may buy, sell, or trade the stock. You can't stop them. So if your biggest enemy in the world wants to buy shares in your company, and he buys it on the New York Stock Exchange, there's nothing you can do. There's two types of public corporations, quasi and nonprofit corporations. Quasi-public corporation, owned and operated by the government. I'm sorry, these are public corporations. Provides services, but often operates at a loss. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, other quasi-public corporations. And then there's nonprofit corporations. These focus on servicing individuals rather than earning profits, not owned by the government. Cato, the Cato Institute, if you ever heard of that, is a nonprofit corporation. I think. Actually, I'm not even sure. They might pay owners profits. Okay, elements of a corporation. You have a board of directors responsible for meeting objectives on schedule, legally liable for mismanagement or misuse, and they hire the corporate officers like the president, the CEO. Okay, there's two types of directors, inside and outside. Inside, employees of the company. That can be dangerous if you let employees vote or run the company. Okay, determine who's going to run the company. They may not serve the interests of the owners, but their own interests themselves. And you have outside people unaffiliated with the company. Problem with them is they may not know as much about the industry as inside people do. Okay. Preferred stock. Preferred stock is what we call mezzanine financing. It's kind of a cross between a bond and stock. It's neither. In essence, if you buy preferred stock, the company tells you that they will pay you a dividend rate. And that dividend rate is set when they offer the first share for sale. So let's say that they price the shares at $100, like they say here, and they say that they were paying a 7.5% dividend payment. Then they will pay you $7.50 per year per share. Now, with preferred stock, that's at the discretion of the board of directors. They can say, hey, we're not paying it this year. Just like with the owner and dividends, the company say, yeah, we made profits, but we're not paying dividends. The company can also say we're not paying dividends. There are many contractual obligations that go along with preferred shares that you would learn about in a finance class. There's accumulating and non-accumulating. Sometimes the company, if they stop dividend payments on preferred, they can't pay common shares until they've made up those back payments. There's other arrangements where they can make payments to common share and don't have to make up those payments or pay dividends. So there's some risk to it there. Common stock is what most people commonly think of. You have voting rights. There's no preferential treatment regarding dividends. You may vote by proxy. You can say, okay, I don't want to go to the shareholder meeting. I'll let someone who asked me vote for me. They have preemptive rights. There's something called preemptive rights where you can buy new shares of stock. Your advantages we talked about earlier, limited liability, ease of transfer of ownership. The nice thing about a corporation is it lives separate from its owners. So if you die, you've got these shares of stock, your heirs can just sell them. If it's a sole prop and you die, the company's dead. If it's a partnership and you die, it's very, very difficult to keep that company going when a partner dies. Then you have to either buy off the heirs, find someone else to buy them off. They might be stinky about it. If they won't let you, or you can't find someone to buy them off, then you either got to take them in as partners, and you might not like or know them, or you're going to have to dissolve the company. Okay. Joint ventures, control can be divided equally, or one partner may control decision making. Used for ventures that call for large investments, such as development of new products. Most of us won't be involved in joint ventures. Oftentimes, two corporations might do it. They might have a big oil field, and maybe Chevron gets the rights to it, and they say, well, it's going to be billions and billions of dollars to invest in. We'll take in some other company, maybe from another country, maybe another oil company, to come in here with us and develop this with us, and we'll form a joint venture between two corporations. S Corp, we talked about that, eliminates double taxation, retains that limited liability, very popular with entrepreneurs, representing nearly half of all corporate filings. Limited liability companies, limited liability and taxation like a partnership, considered a blend of best characteristics of corporations, partnerships, and sole proprietorships. Cooperatives, people band together to reap benefits of belonging to a larger organization, set up not to make money as an entity, but so members can become more profitable or save. A lot of electric companies in rural areas are cooperatives. All these businesses and people own the cooperative. It provides electricity. They make payments and they benefit by making profits or having a nice life with electricity where no one else is willing to provide it. Okay, that's where we're going to leave off for this video.